Good afternoon. Let's just let it go.
I'm Bruce Leslie and I'm Regional Ranger Special Operations that has a small grouping of special rangers that do specific jobs throughout the Kruger Park in the IPZ and outside of the IPZ. The Kruger Park being just under 2 million hectares, approximately the size of Israel.
We're in trouble. This is a serious onslaught on our natural resources. It's unabated, it's relentless.
My name is Priaash Ramadeen. I'm an engineer within the Command and Control and Information Warfare Research Group. And this slide just tells you a little bit about myself. But what I actually want to say is recently, all the projects that I've been involved with, I've sort of taken a different mindset, and this is consistent with the team, about making impacts. And moving from the lab to the park is really an example of us trying to make impacts. Taking our technology out of the lab and into the real world. And I think this ties in a lot too with the first few presentations, hearing about it. So I'll be focusing on the Kruger National Park. And when we're talking about the Kruger National Park, one has to understand the geography of it. Why is it such a problem in nowadays? It shares the South African border, for one. It's the size of Israel. It's the second thing that you need to consider. And most of the rhino population of the world's population exists within the Kruger National Park. There's surrounding other private parks in there. There's communities living around there. It's a very dynamic environment. So looking at all those factors, then we see, and we know that in recent years, there's been an increase in the number of poaching. It is getting worse. So when the CSRs joined the fight, I looked as well at the mandate, and it really fits in with what we as the CSR should be doing, can be doing. And just focus and contribute to the improvement of quality of life of the people of the Republic. And I'd like to think that includes the lives of the rhinos. So what I'll be doing now is sort of taking you on a little journey of how we introduce a technology called CMO that grew from the lab that is now being used in the park operationally. So the very beginning of when we started to conceptualize the system, we sort of asked the question, and very much thinking in a military perspective, how can we leverage modern technologies for command and control applications? And the answer that we eventually came up with was to create the platform that we call CMO. So I'm just going to quickly tell you what CMO is, what it does. So CMO is an integrative, collaborative, distributed, shared awareness platform. It is a software ecosystem that has these four main aspects as its function. So awareness, that's your basic function that you need in any scenario when you're looking at any problem. You're trying to sort of understand the scenario. You're trying to understand the environment. And you want to enhance a commander's or a user's awareness. So that is the first function that we try to enhance for the user, for multiple users. But CMO has been designed to work on organizational levels, to work interdepartmental, multinational, different domains, SAPs and sandparks, for instance. So it's on that level of thinking. Integration, no one system can do everything. And CMO considers this. So CMO is also an integrative platform. If there are systems that have certain functions that can feed in towards the user's problems, we integrate with and provided that information in an integrative collective view within CMO. This is very important. Collaboration. Operations other than war, the modern war scenarios, they need a collaborative solution. It's not only the job now, and I think this was said earlier, of one department to solve the problems. It's the job of multiple departments. The police, the defense force, the rangers on the ground have to work together. They have to work with the criminal system. You gotta consider the whole loop. And then, of course, in closing the loop, we gotta analyze. We gotta have analysis of whatever we're putting in the system to close the loop, to understand, and to predict, more importantly, future. So we gotta move towards being proactive. So what I'm going to do now is sort of take you on a little journey, starting right in the beginning, from concept. So when you have an idea, it's not enough just to have an idea. You need to grow that idea. And when you're trying to innovate, what usually happens is innovation comes out of a requirement or a need, something that is forcing you to think in that direction. And in our case, many years ago, Thomas mentioned that the World Cup, Soccer World Cup was coming to our country. And we started thinking, we got involved rather from a military perspective in that whole process, thinking about incident management. So that is the first time when we started thinking, okay, we need to get involved in some event management incident. And we had a technology at that point. And what we proceeded then to do was to quickly then add on to our existing technology some platform or UI to create incidents, to allow the people that were sitting in the National Joint Operations Center to create incidents. So what you're seeing is the very first screen, the very first technology that we used to create incidents. And this was joined in with the tracks. So we had our live feeds coming in. So the screen on the right you're seeing is the live tracks from the operational military systems, and in that case it was the APDS. And users were then allowed to click on that and then create an incident and log it. So after that event, we said, okay, this is going in the right direction. Let's give it to some students to create a web-based platform, because collaboration inherently you want to do on the web. It's a very good fit. And that's what that looked like. And then we went to a different architecture. We made it a project. And that's what that architecture looked like. Don't focus too much on the detail. And then we said, okay, we'll formalize the project. We got a web-based architecture going. We're going to build an application on top of this architecture. And we then proceeded, and it looked like that. That was the first very portal that we used. And it's just a basic feed, a little list, and that's what it looked like. And it had main functions such as workflow, tasking, and allowing people to sort of create incidents. You'll see this is the feed that's just expanded. And at this point, we said, okay, we need to then take lessons from social networking. At that time, Facebook and Twitter were exploding. And we said, okay, let's make it look something like Facebook. Maybe that'll work. So you'll see there's a feed in the middle, and there's your profile there. Still keeping the work list. We improved how it looks a little bit. And we now still to this day carry the social networking influence right into CMO existing. But what's important here is this is the first time we combine social networking with command and control capabilities. So thereafter, the next natural progression was to, okay, can we play with mobile phones? So then the smartphones all have cameras and GPSs and stuff like that. So we said, okay, let's create the first applications that use mobile phones, and we want to upload an image that's automatically geolocated to this very first platform. And here is an image of the very first time that we uploaded an image that had been automatically geolocated. But this architecture was built to experiment with in the lab. This is very important. So at this point, we then said, okay, we had already attended 2 border safeguarding experiments coinciding with the lab work, where we were experimenting with other technologies. And from those 2, it was operation in Lovu, and there was 1 experiment in Lady Brant. And at that point, we said, okay, the use case or the context for the next version of the system is border safeguarding. Let's take that scenario, try to think of the requirements, the needs from a border safeguarding scenario, and that is interdepartmental. So we started off with the SANDF thinking, okay, what would they need? What system functions, requirements would they require? And then we slowly realized, listen, you got to consider the police. And then the poaching came along, and then, okay, you got to consider sandparks. So the very first requirements into the first version of CMO were very specific features. We said, okay, we need a display that gives us an idea of the environment in somewhat real-time manner. We need to track our own blue forces, no matter what technologies they're using, whether it's radios. We had an idea then to track them with smartphones. So okay, maybe that'll work. You want to be able to direct them. You want to see if they enter an area automatically. And this was when we first started thinking about an operations room. You know, what should it look like, different levels of it, and so forth. So that brings us then to the border safeguarding. A great pleasure to then, at this point, introduce CMO. So we got down, a new team was actually formed. It started at this, and CMO was then born. And that was our initial logo that you saw there, a bit blurry, a bit scrappy. The architecture was changed with the vision towards using it operationally. So we started thinking about security and scalability and the possibility of use back then. Parallel to that, we started doing work on the UI. What does a modern command and control UI look like? And this was the first one that we came up with. Tile-based view, centralized map, take advantage of the geographic nature of things. So this is Herman's profile. He's in the audience. You'll spot him there. And then not excluding the profile, social networking profile that we had in the previous version. So we were really thinking, okay, pulling out features here and there. And we needed the mobile applications as well. So we had incident uploading app. We thought about, okay, there's a border patrol guy. What app will help him? He's not in an urban environment. So that's why we didn't even have a map application. And initially, the focus was on a compass. We said, okay, if the guy's on the border and he's just swirling around and an incident happens, he knows to go in that direction. Conversely, he'll need to know where his own forces are. It's in the bush. We can't really see them. So let's give them some technology to sort of help them understand the environment better. And then what happened is, we started with the experimentation, particularly using CMO. The first one was in Messina. Sorry, I just need some more time. So what we're seeing here was the very first example of using CMO in a collaborative way. So this was in the IDE in the CSR, and he was a live link with someone in Polokwane, and they're busy planning a tactical operation. So this was one of the fictitious incidents that we came up with that they wanted to play out and see how they use it. But what's important to note here, the requirements of conferencing and annotating onto the map were not part of CMO. They were part of this smart board technology. And you'll see this gentleman then was planning on the map. So then this is one of the real benefits of experimentation. You give them something and they start using it in a different way. You think, oh, okay, there's a new requirement. So then what we did is we said, okay, we came back home, and also this experiment gave us massive performance sort of realizations of a system being used remotely, distributedly. So all those lessons were taken into the next experiment, Macadamia. And here we got really into the mode of getting somewhere and setting up. As Kobus said, Now we were ready. This was a 1-2 day setup. This video just shows a time lapse of what we're doing. So we get to a place, we know what we're doing, take our equipment, find a room, deploy in it, and there. This experiment had a massive focus on integration. So we integrated operational and experimental systems. And this is a very good thing because it allows you to experiment or to play with newer concepts. Let me mix some old technology, some current technology, and some new technology. We pushed all that information into CMO and allow them to start playing around with different types of workflows. It was really an eye-opener. And what you're seeing now is, in this experiment, which was in the same year, we now introduced the concept of conferencing and annotating within the next version. So you see how the experiments sort of drove our requirements, drove our thinking. They were critical. The first time we integrated with the aeronautics UAV is John Mark's Indiza UAV there. So this just shows you the geographic nature and the spread of the experiment. So it was based in this area here, and you'll see that there was a lot of data being generated. This was just a 2-week picture of all of that data generated. And we had a live link with what was then the Concept Demonstration and Experimentation Center in the CSR. So we could link live with them, and that's what it looked like at that point. And you'll see CMO running there. And this is the setup we had for the Macadamia Experiment. So we threw around some projectors and had a little table. And shortly after that, the CSR Safety and Security Flagship occurred. And this was really the driver that led to us operationalizing the concepts that we came up with. So this is just a nice picture of the entire CSR team that shows all the people that were involved in that flagship. And this is what Flagship allowed us to transform the CDEC into, from the previous picture into this. And it's really a great platform, for one, to demonstrate your technology, to show multiple different aspects. The floor is open. We can change it and move things around to create different types of workflows, different types of processes. And also, importantly, what Flagship started doing was getting us to think about different domains other than military. And we already were in that position. And the new CMO, or the real CMO, was then born. So our logo was cleaned up and redesigned. The architecture, importantly, was upgraded. Now we didn't need to redesign stuff. We were already on that path. We upgraded it, don't focus too much on the detail, but the main things here was number one, security. The platform needed to be secure. We want to do sensitive security-related operation scenarios. We needed event management. We needed to be able to classify stuff. And we upgraded the portal as well to look a bit more meaningful. The way you represent your information is critical to the decisions the user makes from it. So I'm just cycling through a few screenshots of what the CMO portal in its current form now looks like. This is a very big aspect, the event management part of CMO. It allows you to collaborate. And this lesson actually came back from the very first social networking requirement. This was many years ago. That requirement then fed through and got itself into CMO. Deployments and planning was another natural thing we were thinking about. It wasn't actually called that when we first did, it was called workbooks. And I'll come back to why we call it deployments and planning at the moment. And you see, still very much focused, again from social networking, on images. How you use images, how you tell stories with images. The mobile applications were then also sort of revised, more in terms of how a user will use it. On the right is an incident application. These are all fictitious data, so don't worry about sensitivities. There's a shot application, which I'll tell you a bit more about. That requirement came directly from the park. So we were now very much in a position, as a result from the experimentation, the requirements, to move forward. But in that same year as the Safety and Security Flagship, Experiment Sultana happened. And what the team did was we abstracted all of the requirements, we put it together in one bowl, and we said, okay, Flagship, Sultana, the requirements overlap. Let's use multiple projects to build something bigger. So once again, very integrated experiment, but a first in that the context was different now. Still border safeguarding experiment, but maritime. So we had to think about, okay, we need to get ship data, stuff like that. So we did what we do. We go to an experiment, we find a venue, we set up our equipment. And here, this was in a library. We deployed, put some projectors on. Stopping again. Okay, so let's see, make sure it doesn't stop again. Okay. So and again, this was the first time where we made use of the CDEC. We had a live link between Sultana and the CDEC. And we had visitors there, so certain people couldn't make it down to Sultana, but they didn't need to go down to be part of the experiment. All the data was run in CMO. You could go home, open up CMO, and be part of the experiment. You could contribute. So again, integration became a big part. We integrated with the Institute of Maritime Technology to receive the AIS data. We integrated with the DPSS, our unit, the CSR unit, aeronautics, optronics, radar. So what you're seeing now is screenshots from the experiment. There, the circle is a direction finding capability circle. The line shows the bearing. The field of view cones show where the optronics cameras were looking. And all of this was integrated into one platform now. So it allowed people to look at one place and say, okay, I have all the information I need now to make a decision. We could access live video streams. You'll see the field of view is tracking that island, and we could then get the video stream directly in the island. So all this information now is available to you. You can filter it as well. Remember this, if you look at the screen, there's a lot going on there. So you could filter it. We introduced the concepts of highlighting and designating, focusing on certain things. And we also integrated with the real operational surveillance system that the Defense Force had deployed for the experiment as well. So once again, we took the theme of combining experimental and operational scenarios in there. Sorry, my video stopped once again. Just towards the end. I just want to show you this one, which is very interesting. During the experiment, this is the same ship that is being tracked with 3 different types of technologies. The yellow is the radar track coming from the radar that was deployed. The green is the AIS, so the ship reporting its own position. And the blue is we threw a mobile phone onto the boat. And that just gives you an idea of the different sort of rates you get from different sensors. And what this also brings about is a need for things like fusion. So you start automated fusion. So the experiments, once again, gave us a real good platform for stuff like that. So, So finally now, we were in a really great position to go to the park. But before we go there, I'm just going to take you a little back. Before the Safety and Security Flagship occurred, we were really in a position, we're still thinking about other applications. Before that occurred, we were thinking, okay, mainly we can maybe use CMO for the police. That's sort of our thinking, we're like the next foot. And a lot of the requirements then sort of came in that manner. But then in January of that year, Major General Euster, who was the chief, visited us in January 2014, and he sat at that very table. And you'll see the CDEC is in its own form, old form, sorry. And we gave him a little demonstration of CMO. That was our first engagement with the sandbox personnel. June 2014 of the same year, the protection personnel, all of them that seated there, came to the CDEC, which was now in this new form. And this really helped us to demonstrate the technology to operational people who are fighting the war on the ground, who are in charge. And I think this demonstration was really the thing that sparked our, to where we are now. How we actually got, one of the big factors of how we got to the park. So we took them through the whole range of what we do. The mobile event application, we had it existing already now because of the requirements of the border. And this now, today, is a massive part of what they're using now in the park. Also, what we did, what was vital, before they arrived, we pulled in a lot of their historic data, which was paper-based. Even the locations were just written, okay, it is that location north of this river. And we sort of took all that and digitalized it and input it into SIM. The next month, we were then there in the park to run an experiment, to do what we do. So we took our team, the experiment was in Skukuza, that's where the operations center of the Kruger National Park is based. And we went there with not really knowing exactly what we're going to do, because it was a new environment. So we thought we'll go have a normal experiment there. We created some fictitious scenarios. We said, okay, we'll go there, we'll run it for them in the park. You know, so there again, a nice picture of us sitting, finding a spot. We always find a spot in experiments, lay down. And we created a virtual operations center. So that's what that looked like. It's a bit of a smaller scale. And this is an operational room. It was a guy's office, essentially. So we set up there. And I'm just going to pause it here because I just want you to go through something. So we had a list of fictitious scenarios we wanted to run. We said, okay, if an incident created there, we'll go do this. We'll show them, okay, you can real-time track this guy. You know, you can create an event. Sort of that sort of process. We said, okay, let's do that. Yeah, you see some of the team members then overlooking, just making sure stuff is working. But then something really great happened. Oh, not so great. It depends how you look at it. It's mostly not so great. Actually, it's really not great. Real incidents started occurring while we were there. Shots were fired. They had to deploy. While we're standing there trying to do an experiment, things are happening. So quickly we adjusted, we reshuffled. We said, okay, we had some mobile devices ready with the apps. We just gave it to the rangers. They jumped in the helicopter and they went. And this is a track. We real-time tracked the air assets. We gave the guy, he went in the field. He saw they were trying to chase down a poacher. From the shots were heard. I remember in that specific incident, they didn't catch it, but they recovered bag, they recovered some footprints, and all of it was taken using the technology at that time. So they were, I mean, we got live exposure to their process right then and there. And that really, you know, got their minds thinking, got our minds thinking. So we then proceeded to then take it further. We said, okay, this is something that could help them. And then we started to understand the standard operating procedures. This was very important. So that's what you're seeing here. It's how you classify something, how you classify an event. Now, this is really critical. You got to have a common understanding of how or what detection looks like, or what a shot looks like across all parks. So we were thinking, okay, in the Kruger parks, but you've got to really have a global understanding. If you're going to track rhino carcasses, for instance, across different parks, they need to look the same. If you want to do proper analysis on the data. Continue. So, you know, and then we already had the event application, and that just worked in there. And through Flagship, we were able to then do work and, you know, operationalize a little bit. There were still lots of bugs, and there still are, and we continuously working on this now. So, but the SOPs was sort of one of the critical aspects. September, that's 2 months later. That's a track, that's my history. I used the CMO mobile phone to track myself going from the CSR to the park. We went there for a day, I think, yeah, it was just a couple hours. We did some 2-hour training for a few people, and we came back. And that sparked sort of the first use. So they started using the system, getting a bit familiar, just a few people. Then we went back, November 2010, they didn't launch, sorry, they're still in the process, but this is what the newer operations center is starting to look like. Looks significantly different as well. So CMO is running in this op center, but it's important to know that CMO is being used virtually. You don't need an operations center. It's on everyone's phone, it's on everyone's PCs. They're able to use it in that way. But the essential objective of what we're trying to do in the park is affect all levels of command, from strategic right down to the tactical to the platform levels. And what this diagram just shows is, if you think of your looping cycles, the OODA loop from the defense, it still applies here. On a strategic level, how do I make these strategic decisions? But you need data based on that. Operationally, where do I deploy my people? Tactically, if an incident happens, how can I use technology to better optimize my routes? So that's sort of the main objectives of what we're trying to assist them to do. 2015 really saw us take off. It's being used operationally in a long-term experimental context. So it's not the 1-week experiment, they're using it ongoing and in a very much operational sense. This is an integrated system. This is what it looks like currently. The Kruger Park Central, because it's the hardest hit. Surrounding parks are also using it, and we're in the mode of getting the other parks on the system as well. The SAF is using it as well to track air movements in the park, all integrated with CMO. The guy sits in front of CMO and logs the air movements. We integrated external systems and a bunch of mobile applications. Sorry, my video is. Just go back there. So this is what the system looks like, but this is evolving. It's growing. And it needs to grow. We have a lot of objectives, there's a ton of work to do in the park to help them further. So this slide just shows a lot of the work that we've been doing this year. So number one, training, support. There's a lot of users now in the park. And they need some better, some of them need more support. Information sharing and visibility, this is critical. That's this diagram, the circular diagram there. It's important that we built a model that allows each client to control its data. So in CMO, each client owns their own data, and it's cooperative. They can share their data with anybody else. And this is important. You want to split. There's some data that's sensitive, some data that everyone needs to see, and we've built that into the system now, and that's there running. Workflow, tracking, services, integration. We're still constantly thinking about how we manage the information and how we are at the phase now where we're ready to now add on prediction platforms, because we have the data now. So this is, CMO is also a research platform in that. So looking towards the future, near future, these are sort of the goals that we got to deploy to the other surrounding parks. We got to get everyone hooked up. There are trends that you'll see that are following. Expanding to SADC, to the rest of Africa, and eventually we are heading towards a global view of conservation. That's actually where we are going with CMO in the environmental asset protection domain. So from the lab to the park, what I've showed you till now is the technology, the experimentation. But how you get something from the lab to the park is really with the right people, the scientists, engineers, researchers. And what you're seeing now is a list of the people that's been involved in here. Pictures of them in their experiments, demonstrating the technology. It's a really great team, and I gotta emphasize that a lot. Problems are this, it's not a matter of just okay, let me just apply some technology. You sort of have to care. You have to consider that, you have to combine that with your technology. It's only then that you can really go towards making a difference. And we very much hope to make that difference in the future and go towards making impact. Thank you.